please. Can you hear me, Ross?
He started that. He doesn't have audio from his connection.
All right, so but it is started, is it?
He's confirmed it's live.
Right, okay, brilliant. Okay, right then, welcome everyone to the Tynedale Local Area Council on today, Tuesday, the 27th of April. And obviously everyone else that's watching it on the live stream. Can I just a quick reminder to all members first, please? If you can keep their microphones on mute unless they're speaking. I'll endeavour to mute those who have accidentally forgot, but if you can do it yourself, that would be brilliant. If you wish to speak, can you please raise your electronic hand, which you find in the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. If there's a major problem and you can't get it, just wave your hand, and if I see you, I'll deal with it anyway. So that's not necessarily too much of a problem either. Right, could I ask Melanie, please, the legal officer, if you could take a register of the members?
Thank you, Chair. If each member can confirm their attendance when I read your name. Councillor Sessford.
Yeah.
Councillor Dale.
Present.
Councillor Gibson.
Present.
Councillor Homer.
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Horncastle.
Present.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Present.
Councillor Kennedy, I think is absent at present. Sorry, Councillor Oliver.
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Councillor Quinn. Absent at present. Councillor Riddle. Again, I think Councillor Riddle is absent at present. Councillor Sharp. Again, absent at present. Councillor Stewart.
Present.
And Councillor Stowe. I understand his apologies, but Nicola will confirm that. Just go back, I think Councillor Kennedy has joined us. You can just confirm that you're present.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Okay, if I could ask Nicola if there's any apologies for absence.
Hello, Chair. We have apologies for absence from Councillors Quinn and Stowe.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now go on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the previous minutes. So first of all, if we just check that these are a true record, please. Everybody happy with them?
Fine by me.
Okay, thank you very much. Right then, if we move now on to disclosure of members' interest, item number 4. Anybody got anything they want to declare for the meeting? I'm not seeing any hands. No, wonderful. In which case, because it's mainly planning their meeting today, I'm going to pass over, please, to Vice Chair Planning, Councillor Rupert Gibson.
Good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, we've just got the one application to look at this afternoon, and so we'll move straight on. The application is 20/03348/full construction of a first floor extension, a new pitched roof to the existing extension at Deancroft, the Dean, Allendale. I don't think, well, there'll be no site videos for this one, but everybody's had the papers and the blue to have a look at good photographs, and so we'll move on to the planning officer, I think. Charlie, would you like to introduce this application, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen with you all now. Can everyone see that?
Not yet.
No. Give me 1 second. Is that better?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
There.
Thank you. So, as mentioned, is for the construction of a first floor extension and a new pitched roof to the existing 2-storey rear extension at Deancroft, Allendale. Here's the location plan, as you can see outlined in red, and the site is east of Leadside Bank and north of the B6 303, which continues down into Allendale. Here is the aerial view, so you can just see the site down in this corner with a bit more context of the surrounding houses. Here are the site plans. To the left, you've got the existing, with the existing pitched roof on the main house and the flat roof on the two-storey rear extension. To the right is the proposed extension. So you've got the pitch roof joining onto the house over the flat roof and the new extension on first floor level only. So here are the existing elevations. Again, this west elevation is what you would see from Leadside Bank, with the rest of the elevations to follow. Here are the proposed elevations. So you've got the new pitch roof on this west elevation adjoining the original property and the extension, with this first floor addition proposed on stilts. There will be associated parking underneath, which will require some excavation of land. Obviously, you've got the modern windows as well. Here are the proposed floor plans, again, just showing the first floor element of the extension, the master bedroom and ensuite. Here are some of the site photos, which you should have seen. Again, roughly the extension of first floor should come out between the two cars. And then just a different angle, with obviously the lane on Leadside Bank being quite narrow, you can see the neighbouring property just to the east elevation there. And it is officer recommendation to refuse the application for the reasons set out in the officer report. Thank you.
Chair, your microphone's off.
Thank you very much, Charlie, for that report. Can I bring everybody's attention to an extra piece of information that certainly came in on my email this morning from BH Planning and Design. I'm not sure if that should be, is that okay? Should I mention that? Has everybody got it? And everybody's read it. Okay, that's great.
Can I
Okay.
just clarify? Are you referring to the written representation?
Yes.
Right, I think Nicola's going to read that out.
Oh, sorry. Right, I hadn't realised that that's exactly what she was going to read out. So that's an officer's report done. So we'll move on to the public written representations, and they're from the supporters Dulcie Reevely and Darren Lees, which will be read by Nicola.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and members, for allowing us the opportunity to provide written representations in support of our client's application, which is before members today, due to the officer's recommendation to refuse planning permission, being contrary to the views of the parish council who support it. The description of the development is summarised in the committee report as comprising of a new pitched roof to the existing extension and a new first floor extension to the north elevation of the property. Parking would be retained underneath the extension, preventing additional cars being parked along the narrow road serving the property. The sole purpose of this application, which is not referred to in the report before members today, is to facilitate home working as a permanent solution in response to the impact that the ongoing COVID pandemic has had on the applicant's current and future working arrangements. The report makes no reference or gives any weight to the merits of home working, and no assessment against policy ENDP 6 of the neighbourhood plan has been undertaken by officers. For reference, policy ENDP 6 indicates that planning permission will be granted for the use of part of a dwelling for office use to facilitate home working and for extensions supporting this use. Paragraph 7.6 of the neighbourhood plan makes clear that the parish council and community strong support for people looking to temporarily or permanently work from home. Paragraph 7.14 of the plan makes clear that the intention of policy ENDP6 is to encourage the creation of opportunities for home-run enterprises to be created and supported in the long term in the parish. This type of proposal is something the community wants and needs. However, no mention of this has been put forward as part of the recommendation to members today. Instead, the recommendation focuses on the size and design of the extension, with the proposed reason for refusal stating that it would be disproportionate to the original building. The NPPF defines the original building as being the building as it existed on the 1st of July 1948. Dean Croft has clearly been extended. However, historic maps and local knowledge indicate that this was done sometime between 1880 to 1920. The lack of any planning history and evidence on the ground supports this conclusion. The suggestion that the works would result in a 101% increase in volume is based on the incorrect assumption that for planning purposes, the flat roof addition to the rear of the property constitutes an extension after 1st of July 1948. The correct position is that the building in its current form should be treated as the original building for the purposes of assessing this application, in which case the additional 25 square metres of floor space would represent a 29.7% increase. The extension is to be constructed of stone reclaimed from the original house and slate to match the original building. The new pitched roofs would be set down from one another and from the main roof, and the extension would be set back from the west elevations of the house. The new extension is small in scale compared to the original building, and these measures would all ensure that the extension would appear subservient to it. The position of the property, location of the extension, and change in land levels are factors which will always mean that the original property remains dominant. The site's surroundings will also largely obscure the extension from most public views. The suggestion that the design differences would be more prominent is, in our view, unfounded and must be considered in context with the location of the site opposite the modern development at Allen Garden and proximity to Hopedean, a new modern, new build property. Any views of the property are fleeting and mostly from drivers passing the front of the property en route into or from Allendale. There will therefore be no adverse impact on the character of the property, the street scene, or the wider AONB. In summary, there have been no objections to this application from consultees or members of the public. The nearest neighbours have written in full support to the proposals, and the parish council have expressed their support too. No weight has been given to the policy compliant benefits of home working, which this application would provide. We therefore respectfully ask that members recognise the merits of the application by supporting a proposal which this community wants and needs, and which we feel is fully compliant with the neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicola. We'll move on to committee members' questions to the planning officers. Who would like to ask a question? Oh, Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, question for Charlie. Charlie, at the end of March, when you were on leave at the time, at the end of March, and so I needed some information on this application. So I was speaking to a senior planning officer about this. I think it was your line manager, and when we're trying to get to the bottom of the problems that both sides were having on this application, I did actually introduce the fact that this was for home working. The couple here had, because the virus situation, were now going to run their business from home. And don't worry, there's a question coming. And the other thing was that I did mention to her the fact that nobody in living memory could remember the extension being built. So my question to you is, was that information passed on to you?
So obviously when this, sorry.
Yes, the two things to make it easy for you,
Yeah.
the home working and the length of time the extension was built. Was that information passed on to you?
Yes, but when the report was already written up, so this information was provided at a point when everything had already been sent out to yourselves and Democratic Services, and the applicants were given the option to pull the application from committee, to provide amended plans and additional information, because no additional information has been provided regarding homeworking until the end of March, and no additional information has been provided regarding the two-storey re-extension and when that was built. So the offer was given to them and it was passed on to myself, but it was too late. They felt like they did not want to pull it from committee and delay the process. So we're going ahead with the scheme as it is, because it would require further assessment. And that's the other reason why policy ANDP 6 is not in there. However, I feel it would still be contrary to bullet point 3 of that policy. Does that answer everything for you?
It does, but I find it very strange that the onus is put on the applicant to find out this information about when the extension was built, and they expect them, after the planning officers had the information 3 weeks ago, more than 3 weeks ago, why they should be expected to withdraw their application. So sorry, that's a comment, but that's the end of my questions.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chairman. It's regarding the parish council comments. The application was proposed and supported by Councillor Galley, seconding this with a proviso that the new building in relation to the existing dwelling does not exceed the guidance as set out in the Allendale Neighbourhood Plan, Policy 9. Could you explain Policy 9, please?
I'm just getting the exact wording up.
Yeah, Charlie, I have the Allendale Neighbourhood Plan up. Members, if you'd like, I can just refresh you on policy ANDP 9, which is extensions to dwellings. Just before I go on to explain the policy 9, I think it's important to emphasise that the whole thrust of the Allendale Neighbourhood Plan, all of their policies want to see overall good design, appearance, size, etc. So whether it's home working or whether it's an extension of a bedroom to a property, design and good design is really key. And remember, members, this site lies in the AONB as well. So we're also looking to the good design within the AONB. But taking you back now to policy 9, extension to dwellings. It says planning permission will be granted for extensions to dwellings and settlements and in the open countrysides where these accord with policy ANDP 1. Provided that, first bullet, the overall design, size, appearance, scale, height and mass of the extension remains visually and functionally subservient to the host dwelling. So that's your first number 1 bullet that you've got to assess this application against. Second, that the external facing materials used in the construction match or complement the construction of the dwelling. Third, no significant or adverse impact arises from the development on the amenity of neighbours. Fourth, the cumulative impacts, effects of such extensions across the surrounding countryside are acceptable. And the final bullet there is that the effects of any significant increased runoff of rainwater arising from the additional hard surface to area can be reasonably mitigated. So that's the policy there, members.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sesford.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify something basically for myself, really, which is following on a little bit from what Councillor Horncastle said anyway. The suggestion in the letter of Planning Design Company that the works at 101% increase, and obviously they're saying, well, really, it's 29% increase because of the extension took place before 1st of July 1948 and things like that. I think that's relatively important because, as Liz has just said about the massing of the building being subservient to the original dwelling, so it's hard to get our heads around this exactly if we don't know exactly whether or not it's 100% extension or 29%.
Okay. Charlie might have a little bit more information on the 1948 rule. I mean, that rule is a fact, and if you've got more, that would be good.
Well, with regard to that, they never mentioned the applicants any information of this. So obviously, it's an extension, so therefore we'd assume that it was built recently, unless there's any evidence proven otherwise, and that was not demonstrated at all within the application. However, within the written representation, it states 23%, and I think they've used floor space, whereas we used volume. So yesterday I did the calculations, say including the flat roof extension, which I'm not sure if it is before 1948 or not at this point in time. However, it still comes out at least a 40% increase, not 23% as stated. I think often we get floor space calculations rather than volume calculations.
I'm just doing a follow up that. That's all right, Chair. I mean, well, 43%, they say 29.7%, and 43% is a lot more than that, but it's a lot less than 101%. And we've had applications in here before when we've queried the fact that things are being extended a massive amount, and we're told 50% is not necessarily classed as massive. So thereby there's another quandary that we've got to decide what is over and above or subservient to the original building. Well,
can I just come back on that, Chair?
Yeah.
So I think there's two issues here. First of all, there's the 1948 rule that's been brought up through the representation on behalf of the applicant. There maybe is more work there to establish you know, from what basis are we calculating our percentages. The report does talk about includes the extension. If it is the case that was built previous to 1948, we do have to look at just the additional proposed building that's there. But what I want to stress with you today, members, is that we mustn't get hung up on the percentages, and you need to look at it overall. So, I mean, critically, when I read out that extract from policy ANDP 9, it doesn't actually mention percentages. We use that as a way of guiding us, but it's really important that you understand it visually and look at it to the eye as well, and apply the whole sentence of the policy there. So we're looking at the overall design, size, appearance, scale, height, and mass of the extension. It's all of those factors. So, you know, you've got to look at those slides and decide cumulatively, looking at all of those factors, notwithstanding those differences in percentages, look at it all and decide, do you think that it will cause harm, and also, do you think it's functionally subservient to the host dwelling? It's the other element of it that you've got to look at. So whilst there may be some discrepancy on, you know, where we're looking at whether we're applying the 1948 rule, the point here is have a look at the design of it overall and decide whether you think that it looks good in design terms, and also the scale and appearance, and whether you would read it as being subservient to the host property.
I think that's a valid point, and I think that's what we do anyway. But the last sentence, subservient to the host dwelling, we do know what the host dwelling is. It makes it a little bit harder. Anyway, that's
yes,
nice.
it does. That's right.
Excellent. Colin, could you mute yourself, please, and knock a hand off? As Trevor, please. Councillor Dale.
Thank you. I was just going to actually reiterate what Councillor Sessford said, but can I just say, first of all, we used to at Tynedale have a 33.5% or 33% overall amount for extensions, and the size belonging to 1948 that was allowed. And I gather quite a long time, must be quite a long time ago, when the actual government took that out of the NPPF. So that is no longer a policy within the NPPF. Can I just say, could we go back? Because I think what I'd like to do is to go back and have a look at the actual photographs again and the design again, please, because I think it would be helpful. So we could just go through one or two questions, because first of all, the land, the actual plan, it did seem to have 3 blocks, an extension. So that would agree with actually being pre-1948, but I would like to actually have a look at the impact. And it's not just the fact that there's a build on, it's just I would like to have a look at the impact of the extension on the original one and the extension. And I think more from the roadside.
So obviously here, this is looking down Leaside Bank, and at the back of the house there, where the cursor is, that's the road that goes into Allendale. So obviously it's going to be on stilts, I think, to approximately about here. So
what kind of stilts are they? Sorry.
2 cars. Their details still to be explored, but it will be.
Yeah. Can I just say that makes it a lot clearer? So the original house, the one on, if I look at the top, the proposed west elevation, the part on the right actually that's the original.
Yes. So this is the original house.
Yeah.
This bit here is the extension that's in question regarding the 1948. And this application is for this section here on stilts and this new roof, this pitched roof here.
Yes. Right, and can I just go back to the original map where you've got the land? Just going back. That's what I was going to say. So, sorry, you flicked it over too quickly.
Sorry, which one, John?
Just go back again. Yeah. So what I'm saying is there's 3 plots. 1, 2, 3. Right. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Go back to the screens. I think Councillor Oliver still want to ask a question. Yes.
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you. Just the reason for refusal mentions the NPPF, but I don't think the report, unless I've missed it, goes into any detail about the what it is in the NPPF that would suggest it ought to be refused. And then the other question was around home working. And we've obviously been told about the Allendale neighbourhood plan and how that impacts on home working, but do any of the sort of higher policies, should any of them take into account home working, or has there been any sort of recent developments since COVID hit about home working? So they were the 2 questions.
So Chair, if I could just respond to that, and Charlie, feel free to jump in if you need to. So in relation to the home working policy, it is interesting. It wasn't. I don't think it had COVID in mind when the Allendale plan writers wrote this plan, but it obviously was very much a forward-thinking policy here. But it did have the home working from home policy in there, which is ANDP 6. So what Charlie's saying is that as part of the application that's been submitted to us for consideration today, it's not suggesting that it's a home working area. You'll see on the plans that we've taken through in the slides that it's an additional bedroom there. However, it would seem that the applicants are working from home, and there is a home working policy there in the plan as well, that if you'd like to take that into account today in your decision making, I can read that out for you. What's crucial about this is the final bullet, which says that any extension or freestanding building shall be designed having regard to policies in this plan and should not detract from the quality and character of the building to which they are subservient by reason of height, scale, massing, location, or the facing materials used in their construction. So although the plan is very pro home working and wants to help to support that, it's not to the detriment of everything else, and that the design, the scale, the massing, that subservient relationship is all remains relevant as well. If you'd like me to read out the full policy, I will, but that's just to give it in context. The same design principles stand that Charlie has taken you through in a report.
Thank you, that's helpful. Yes. And is there and the reasons for the NPPF is mentioned in the recommendation?
Yeah.
What
Charlie may have something specific that she wants to refer to. What I would advise is that the starting place for assessing this application is the Allendale Neighbourhood Plan. It's your primary piece of plan policy that you apply the application against. The MPPF, we always like to make sure all our plan policies are also MPPF compliant, which we would say that the Allendale Neighbourhood Plan is. But I don't know, Charlie, if there was anything else at the time that you felt relevant in the MPPF to add to that reason for refusal.
Just mainly to do with design, again, about the scale, massing, the design being obviously more modern than traditional, like the surrounding properties, with it obviously being a stone built traditional cottage. So it's just to do with the fact that the MPPS tries to encourage anything not to have an adverse impact on the area, the host dwelling, and the size and massing obviously being subordinate to the original dwelling, in terms of not only just percentages as discussed earlier, but also visual appearance when you first look at it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sessford.
Hi, talking about the visual appearance, we've got the extension there on stilts, which is, in other words, it's open for a carport, which isn't miles away from something we've had quite recently, where there was lots of issues on that. Can I just ask how much of the visual problems that we have, or yourselves have, are to do with the stilts, and if they are, has anything been said as to a change of design about that?
With regards to it being on stilts, yes, I would consider that they are part of the design issue with the modern design. However, if they were removed and it was constructed as a 2-storey extension, there would be high-rise implications, and I'm not 100% sure that they will be able to be met due to the limited space of the site. And obviously the bank itself, there's not really any parking, and it's quite narrow, so there wouldn't really be parking available on site at an adequate level if the proposal was changed to a 2-storey extension.
Well, I'm thinking more of an enclosed garage area rather than, so in other words, the cars could still park there, which I think is something we actually decided to ask to be done to another premises not long since.
Yeah.
However, then again, it would be to do with massing, and the volume percentage will increase because it would be an enclosed space.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just to add to that, Councillor Sessford, Charlie has set it out in a report as well, but she is accepting that the proposed pitched roof over the existing flat roof is an improvement in design terms, but that the rest of the extension, and in particular the modern single glazing panels and the large corner window, don't reflect the character of the property and the area. And regardless of whether the garaging below is enclosed, that's something for you to take into account as well.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to ask a question? I think I might have a quick one. The home working element of this fascinates me, and I'm wondering, this is obviously a residential application, but should it be a residential application because office equals business equals all sorts of different things? I don't know if that's right or wrong, or
yeah, it's an interesting point, and actually we get a lot of queries regarding that. I mean, no is the answer to that. The policy, and I'll just read out the preamble to that policy, ANDP 6. It says planning permission will be granted for the use of part of a dwelling for office and or light industrial uses, and for small scale freestanding buildings within its curtilage, extensions to the dwelling, or conversion of outbuildings for those uses, provided that it is ancillary to the main dwelling house or the main use of the property. So ancillary uses such as this are acceptable, and that's how that policy is framed within the Allendale Neighbourhood Plan.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to debate. Whoa. Who would like to? Well, it's Councillor Hutchinson, I'm afraid, was first, so he's going to have to make a proposal.
Quick draw, Hutch, eh? Sorry, Colin. Well, I'm going to go with the officer's recommendation and recommend refusal. I'm afraid, as Colin, I know the house very well, I know the area very well, and it appears as if they're trying to put an enormous stamp onto a tiny little envelope. I'm amazed highways have no objections because it's very close to a road junction. I think Colin's going to disagree with all of this, but never mind. It's very close to a road junction. There's no footpath where the carport is. It's near a corner as well. Is it coming down the bank?
Actually, Councillor, do you think I should just stop you there for a moment and ask for a seconder?
You can if you wish, yes.
I think I should. Who would like to second Councillor Hutchinson? Councillor Sesford, please carry on.
Thank you. As I say, if the Allendale local plan, great, seemingly made a good job of it, but it's what do you put most weight to? Working from home in the right location, or do you put on the mass and scaling of the house in the ONB? So I'm sorry, I'm swaying towards the officers and don't think it's the right place for that extension. If they need a larger residence, my advice would be to sell that and move somewhere else. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, oh sorry, Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, obviously, I totally and absolutely disagree with Councillor Hutchinson. I don't know where he's coming from. He hasn't listened to a word that's been said. When you decide the plan application, you've got to look at all the information in front of you. This report was written a month ago. It was written for the last meeting that was cancelled. All the up-to-date information hasn't been put in. It's been mentioned today, but it's been glossed over. This is a very, very small house. It's on an Ian, you know where the Dean comes out. It's on a really, really steep slope. Charlie's right. There's absolutely no parking anywhere else other than on site. So the only way they can accommodate a small extension to this house is by actually putting the two cars underneath the extension. The stilts that we're talking about, if it was done any other way with arches or stone columns, stone pillars, there wouldn't be room to park two cars. That's why they've got these what you call stilts. Now, when you're talking about design on this site, the windows, if you have a look at these sheets here, where it says aerial view, and I'll just wait till you get the aerial view. The application site is exactly where it says Ledgate Bank. That's the very, very small building to the right of where it says Ledgate. If you have a look on the other side of the road, you will see a massively high wall and huge hedge. Now, you've got to ask yourselves, if you were putting an extension on your house, would you put tiny little windows in when you're lacking light anyway, or would you put windows in to try and make the place something, you know, that's livable with? Because small windows don't work here. And I'd also like to point out on the same sheet, if you have a look at the very last page, when we're talking about glazing, if you have a look at the building next door, photo from the west looking east, there's a huge conservatory, far bigger than this extension, 100% glass. And yet we're talking here about a couple of windows because a little bit bigger than the planners might consider is acceptable. Those windows are there for a reason. Now, where's my notes? I've dropped them on the floor. So, sorry. Home working. It's in the Allendale neighbourhood plan. It should have been updated. That policy should have been in. Officers knew this was an extension to provide some extra office space so this couple can now work from home. Whereas you have all been working from home for the last 14 months. Let these people work from home. That's what they want to do. It's a proper policy in the Alder neighbourhood plan, and anybody anywhere should be able to work from home. Now, I mentioned the steepness of the site. The steepness of the site actually dictates the design of this building. Now, when we're talking about design, I'm getting a little bit concerned about planners, and this isn't directed at Charlie because she's never on the screen, but other planners, right, seem to pick and choose when design suits them. Just round the corner, a building that this committee actually visited and gave it plan permission 2 or 3 years ago is a house called Hope Dean. It is the most modern building you will see anywhere in the AONB, and yet it sailed through planning, no problem at all. And that's just 100 yards up the road. Now, also, we're talking about design and materials. Oh, it's got to be traditional, blah, 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 blah. And yet planning officers seem to pass buildings in this area, houses, extensions covered in black tin. Mentioned that 3 months ago. There's a house just up the road, absolutely covered in black tin. That was acceptable. There's houses covered in timber. That's acceptable. There's houses that's got glazing all over. That's acceptable. But when you look at an individual small development like this, you say, well, none of these things are acceptable. It's got to be traditional. And yet in the report itself, Charlie actually says that the new roof will be a massive improvement on the flat roof that's there. It's in the report. Now, Ian Hutchinson wants to turn this down because of scale and massing. Does he really? 43%, Ian? It's not 101, it's 43. I have asked people in this area, and it's in the report, it's in the public participation bit you've got today. This extension was built 100 years ago, if not 120 years ago. So you go back to the original size, and the size is 43%, which is very, very acceptable and very subservient to the original building. So all I can say is that I cannot support Councillor Hutchinson's recommendation to refuse this. It's balmy. If you went to, I'm pretty sure if this goes to appeal, you will lose, because the up-to-date facts that people knew about a month ago are not in the report. Thank you.
Then there should have been.
Very good. Councillor Dale.
Thank you. Can I just go back to, first of all, the North Pennine Airway and B? Once again, they haven't written any response. And I actually, a long time ago, was on the committee that actually drew up their design plan. I'm actually rather concerned at the fact that they're not replying to any applications, including some that have actually become quite problematic. As far as I'm concerned, one of the things I have to say is about the MPPF, which is there's a presumption in favour of sustainable development. And I do have a concern that in some cases, moving forward as we are now with the legacy of COVID, we are going to have different ways of working. But what I'm concerned about is that to make it and retain village sustainability, all our villages have or types of different houses, and as Councillor Horncastle's just mentioned, there's a very modern one just along the road. And I think we need to decide whether we are proactive in providing presumption in favour of sustainable development. That is what the council should be doing all the time. So I do have that's what the MPPF is very clear, is saying that all planning should be well, have a presumption of sustainable development, and it should be in favour of development. Now, that is a starting point, but I have a concern now that we're starting to look at all kinds of development and treating them the same. And I think we need to be very careful that we don't pick and choose what we think is right and what we think is wrong. It's not listed. I think if it was listed in any form 1 or 2, then we could look at it in a different eye. But I'm concerned that just actually moving forward that we're going to have a lot more types of applications coming in. And actually we want people to work from home. That is what its future will be, especially in the rural areas. And I think we need to be careful that we don't start picking and choosing on what I call the nice buildings. But that doesn't mean they're substandard or anything. There's just, you know, they're not listed. And I think we should be very careful about how we look at and manage all these buildings in the future.
Thank you very much. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I think I do feel for the applicants. Obviously, they want to, they want to work from home, and COVID has probably increased that need, as it has for almost all of us. However, we do have to operate within the planning system and the rules and regulations that we've got. Otherwise, there's just no point in having them. The site is clearly very constrained. It's got the road around it, and the plot doesn't have a lot of room for extension. But it seems to me that the key thing is that in the policy it says the design, the size, appearance, scale, height, and mass are all the sort of key factors. And in all of those cases, this would seem to be not in accordance with that. And so I think the fact that it's a second floor extension on stilts, regardless of however the floor space or the volumetric calculations are done, is going to make it look bigger, and therefore it's going to change the character of the surrounding area. And I think if we ask ourselves, is this extension really visually subservient? I'm just not sure that, as much as I'd like it to be, I'm not sure that it really it can be. I mean, Councillor Horncastle himself said that it's a very, 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 very small house, and an extension on stilts. Is that really going to be visually subservient? Is it really not going to change the character of the area? And then the point around sustainable development, yes, that is our starting point, but that is overlaid here by the fact that this is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and that has its own characteristics and its own protections. So I'm afraid I have to support Councillor Hutchinson's proposal.
Councillor Homer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Oliver's just made a number of points that I was also going to make in support of the comments made by Councillor Hutchinson. I just want to ask a question, please, of either Liz Cinnamon or Melanie, please, if you wouldn't mind, because there's been some quite serious and concerning statements made there about the information that's within this report. So obviously you're expecting us as members of this planning committee to make a decision based on this information that's in front of us, and it would appear from the statements of Councillor Horncastle that he's telling us that there's quite a bit of information that's missing in that, and that the information that's come to light in the last month hasn't been included. So I just need to know, I've got a viewpoint at this moment in time, but before I decide on how I'm going to vote on that, do we have a full and comprehensive report on which we're being asked to make a decision on here, or is there information missing that we should come back to, please?
Okay.
Sorry, Liz.
I was just going to begin to answer that, but Melanie, you might want to sort of chip in as well.
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Homer, I think what I was going to say is you have to consider the application before you. So the application previously, as far as the papers are concerned, hasn't mentioned home working. The statement from the agent, the written representation, does mention home working. I think I'll have to pass over to Liz as to the history that's gone on in between. Yeah. Because I think, as Charlie's already said, the applicant was informed that they could withdraw this application and amend it, but they didn't choose to do so, and I think they've wanted to proceed with the application before you. But like I say, I think Liz from the planning department will have to answer it properly.
So just looking through the report, the application was validated on the 9th of October, and we have assessed it based on the description, which was a first floor extension, a new pitched roof to the existing extension, and also the plans that we've taken you through on the slides as well show it with a bedroom and a bathroom in there, I think, as well. So we have assessed it on all of that, and until the applicant either withdraws or formally resubmits new plans, descriptions, etc., we deal with the application as it is. As I understand it, the report was prepared and written ready for committee earlier in the month, all on the basis of this. So the reports were published on that. There may well have been subsequent discussion, but for the adjournment because of Prince Philip's death, we are considering this application that's before you today. But that said, we have had an important discussion about the home working aspect to it as well, and we have brought to your attention, if that were to change, what you would look at in your consideration of that too. But we are primarily looking at this as an extension, which on the plans was a bedroom with a bathroom.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a suggestion? I'm not happy. I mean, we all sometimes argue against planning officers and argue against each other, and win some, we lose some. That's not what I'm not happy about. I'm not happy about the fact that officers knew all this information 5 weeks ago. Now, what I would like to, for the committee to sort of like consider, forget about design and all the other things at the minute. The most important thing here is the percentage increase. Why don't we just defer this to let the applicant's agent, the planners themselves with historical records, go back and find out if it's 101% or it's 43%, because that's what this application hinges on. That's just a suggestion. Defer it for proper information, and it'll have to come back to a new committee sometime.
I have to say, I'm going to say something now. I was obviously briefed yesterday at 11:30. What we're now talking about bears no resemblance to what I was briefed on yesterday morning. And I'm slightly in favour of what Colin has just said, because the paperwork, I have to say, just isn't votable on. And I don't like having scraps of paper and other bits and pieces turning up later on. I like to study these things and you know, well, what was the point of being briefed yesterday if I didn't have half the information? So I think we need to vote on Councillor Hutchinson's proposal. And depending on what happens there, I would also go for a deferral. But Councillor Hutchinson.
I'm sorry, Chair. I'm not prepared to remove my proposal. As Melanie and Liz have both said, this application was written about 5 weeks ago from what Colin says. The applicant's agents have had that time to withdraw it and put a new application in. They haven't done so in that time. If for some reason that this fails and fails them anyway, and it is refused, they've got the right to appeal, and they can still put another proposal in, an amended proposal, with what, in my opinion, they should have done in the first place 5 weeks ago when this first cropped up. So I'm not prepared to withdraw my proposal of officer's recommendation of refusal.
Right. Where we've got to then, it's time for a vote. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation?
Chair, can I just interject? I don't know whether Councillor Hutchinson wants to, has he summed up? Has he closed the debate by saying?
I can have a very quick sum up. As I said, I don't think it's really got a great lot to do with volume, size, etc. It's more design, detail, that kind of thing. And its location. I just don't think it's the correct extension in that place. It's a very, very narrow area to have such an extension. And I know highways have nothing against it. I'm not using this as a reason for refusal. But I think there'll be an accident there somewhere, somebody driving in and out of that carport, either reversing out, which you shouldn't onto a public highway, or reversing in. So that's not the point anyway. It's the reasons for refusal are the officer's recommendations, and I still go by them. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Melanie?
Thank you,
Should we
Chair.
have a vote now?
Members, you've heard the proposal, which is to refuse the application based on the reasons in the officer's report. I'll read your name if you can tell me whether you're for, against or abstaining in respect of that proposal, starting with Councillor Sessford.
For.
Councillor Dale.
Abstain.
Councillor Gibson.
Abstain.
Councillor Homer.
For.
Councillor Horncastle.
Against.
Councillor Hutchinson. We'll need to unmute.
For.
Councillor Kennedy.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
And Councillor Stewart.
Abstain.
Chair, that's 5 for, 1 against and 3 abstentions, so that motion is passed.
Okay, that concludes this afternoon's business. And I'd just like to say to everybody, thank you very much for 4 years. It's been quite a shift. I've had some interesting stuff, and yeah, and wish everybody good fortune on the 6th of May.
Can I just say that there is the planning appeals update, just for members' information at item 7 on the agenda.
Right. That's fine. Thank you very much, Melanie.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Gibson. Okay, we'll move on to item 8 now, please, on the agenda, which is the date of the next meeting, which is down as Tuesday, the 15th of June, 2021, at the moment, 2 o'clock. Who knows whether that will change, depending on what the COVID situation is then. Anybody want to say anything about that? If not, we'll move on to item 9. Councillor Dale, you've got your hand up.
I just wanted to make a point about the AONB and starting into next year, where the AONB never ever respond to any consultation, and yet all the time we're hinging a lot of applications, and the AONB is a large area, and in many cases we're hinging some outcomes on planning on the design work of the AONB, and there's also a lot of other things that are within the AONB which the partnership have actually declined to respond to, and I just think it's something the council should be looking at when they've really got some quite strong planning applications. Or
yeah, can I stop you there, Councillor Dale? Thank you very much for that. It's a good point, well made. It's outside of the planning meeting, so it could have been brought up earlier. However, I think I'm talking. Thank you. I do think, however, it's a good point, well made. And I'm sure the planning officers will take that into account. So thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to item 9 now. I'm not aware that we've been given any urgent business. Can I just check that with you, Nicola?
No, I have no urgent business.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just like to say a couple of things at the end, which is basically thanks to all the councillors. I'd like to say a farewell to those who are either not standing again or who we don't meet again through other circumstances which don't take a lot of working out. I would, however, like to take this opportunity, and I know it's only planning, so unfortunately we're going to miss out the highways, the local services and things like that. But I'd just like it on record to say a massive thanks to all the officers who have helped throughout the last 4 years of these Tynedale local area committee meetings, which in my opinion, this is a personal opinion, are a marked improvement on what we had before. That's my opinion. And finally, if I could give a special thanks to our Democratic Services Officer, Nicola Turnbull, who I think has done a brilliant job of looking after us all so well. And you know, that's not the easiest task, I can assure you. But thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you, Chair. You're the second best